Some did cost lots of sponsors or partners, but they never give up. Instead, they collected feedback, they analyzed it, and improved each and every aspect of the conference organization. Fellow GDG organizers, my name is Vitaliy Zasadnyy. I am one of the founders of GDG Lviv, the team behind the story. Today on GDG CEE Summit, we want to share with you, GDG organizers who already run or are about to run DevFest, our experience in running DevFest. So far, the biggest Google Tech conference in Central and Eastern Europe. This year, we managed to collect more than 700 attendees with more than 30 speakers. And recordings from DevFest from the last years has more than 10,000 views on our YouTube channel. But besides DevFest, we also co-organizer of Lviv TRN conference. It's running from the stadium. It's truly huge conference. This year they collected 2,000 people. Can you imagine 2,000 people in one place? With more than 80 speakers, mostly from Eastern Europe and US. So we have quite decent experience, but you can say big conferences doesn't mean successful conferences. And that's true. We probably faced huge conferences that were total failures. But we can prove a difference. Based on the data we collected from the feedback, more than 90% of all attendees of DevFest 2016 were satisfied or well satisfied with the conference. 78% were pointed to a high content quality. And for this, I can say thank you to some of the speakers that are present in this room. Without them, we won't reach this rate. And what is the most important for us? Everyone is ready to go to DevFest 2017. So now, let's focus on the organizing conference on a scale, because that's our goal, to make conferences about GDGs that can create impact. And to create an impact, you need to run a big events. If you look into timeline of organizing any conference, you have your endpoint, your goal, and you have some starting point. For our team, it took 6 months to organize DevFest Ukraine. Exactly 180 days between March 13, when we held our first Sprint Zero planning, to the September 9th, when we actually kicked off the DevFest. But what we did for these 6 months? And to answer this, we created a workload document that you can find the template. Do you have a pointer here, over here? All this will be published later, so you don't have to remember the links. But we created workload documents which specifies on which ones, on what part of the organization we need to focus. And there are pretty a lot of stuff to focus on, like budget, team, running media, fundraising. There are tons of stuff you have to handle. But today, because we have only 45 minutes, we are going to focus on running operations in a team, handling the budget, and content management. So let's start with the team. This smart guy said that if the team know what they're doing and why they're doing, everything will just work. And the success will take care of itself. I'm really proud to be a part of GDG Lviv team. I think we are like a small family now, after running DevFest and some other events, and that's your goal. But GDG Lviv is only a core of our DevFest team. Besides GDG Lviv, there are much more people working. For instance, all GDGs in Ukraine are contributing to organization of DevFest. Also, we have volunteers who are helping during the event to run everything perfectly smoothly, to help with demos, help with speaker management, and stuff like that. So let's focus on core. First and the most important task for a core team is to have the vision. If team doesn't have vision of the event, they're going nowhere. So first, when you assemble a team, you need to make sure that everyone is knowing what you want to get at the end. Next, this core team should drive the organization. There will be a lot of initiatives, but everything should go from in-team, but it doesn't mean that others cannot contribute. Everyone in a core team should be aware of what is happening in the other parts of the team. So if I'm responsible for speakers, Oleg is responsible for budget. I should know at least at what stage is our fundraising process, how many sponsors do we have, so I can plan how many foreign speakers we can bring into Ukraine for this year. And take the responsibility. Like Piotr mentioned on his previous presentation, someone should take responsibility for the fundraising. Someone needs to sign a contract. And it should be someone from a core team. On my previous time, I pointed that everyone from the core team should be physically located in one city. But that's not actually true, because I live in the Netherlands, though I'm organizing DevFest Ukraine. So it's not a requirement with current state of technology. Next, everyone should, each area of responsibility, like event management, speaker management, budget, should have exactly one responsible person. But it doesn't limit that one person can have more than one responsibility. What do I mean by this? Imagine a situation. It's not actually a situation, it's just what we had with our team in 2014 when we ran DevFest for the first time. We decided, okay, we want to approach a couple of partners, and Ostap will approach his friends from IT companies, I'll approach my friends in IT companies, Oleg will approach his friends. And at the end, we proposed different stuff to different companies, and there were some misalignments in our team about what do we offer, how do we communicate with the sponsor. To avoid this, all communication should go through one person. How are we doing it now? Don't ping me in Facebook now. Okay, you can play a melody with pings in the Facebook. So how it is working now? If now Oleg is responsible for all our budget and reaching out the sponsors. If Ostap have friends, he do initial introduction. He says, okay, we are organizing a great event. Please talk with Oleg. He is responsible for a budget and he is going to communicate with you with now on. And the last point, core team should stay compact. Don't grow it too much. Now we have 10 organizers in our team. We started with five. Yeah, we started with 5 people in 2014, but don't grow our 10 people because communication becomes hard. It just, your meeting will be endless. And it becomes harder and harder to know what everyone else is doing. How we are getting things done? First, we are following Scrum. We have sprints. We are doing our sprint plans every 2 or 3 weeks, depending how far is it to the conference. We create all our tasks in Trello, and they are all result-oriented. There is no tasks like raise money. There is task, reach out our friends from Zalando, because we know that they're interested. We have task, go through the conference XXX. Okay, we don't go through those conferences. To check out what kind of what kind of speakers we can get out from that conference.
Big data.
Big data. Okay. Small step ahead for this IT Arena conference, we actually almost got a speaker from Pornhub. Next, everyone should report during sprint planning. As I mentioned, core team should know what everyone else is doing. And reporting during the sprint planning is essential to achieve this goal. We use Trello for management, but we already created board for 2017. For document sharing, because all contracts, all assets are allocated into one folder on Google Drive, where all core team has access. And we use Slack. We used to use Skype. It was terrible on mobile. We used to use Facebook. It was not terrible on mobile, but it was terrible. Finally, through pains, we said, okay, we probably have to use Slack. Our volunteers and GG crew from other cities pushed us there, and we are really grateful that they forced us to use Slack, because from now on, that will be the main communication channel for all our organization. Now let's talk about crew. Who are those people who contribute to the events but can't take that active part? First, those are hello there. It's probably because I see you typing something. Those people who cannot commit fully, those who have, for instance, 2 months ahead free, but after that something is coming and they cannot commit for a whole half a year to organize a DevFest. Or those are the people who are interested in some specific area. For instance, Sasha, he was interested in developing a feedback collection tool for DevFest. He was focused only on this project. He wasn't a part of core team for 2 years, I guess. This year he finally joined the core team, and we are very happy with that. But he was focused only on one small part of the conference organization. And he was part of the GG crew. For size of this team, it depends. In case of Ukraine, it was 22 people last year. This year we have 35 people in this GG crew team. In your case, it could be less, it could be more. Due to nature, there is no limit because you can distribute tasks for the conference to as many people as you can. For the structure, how it works in relation to core team, in our case, there is always a lead of the stream. For instance, if I'm managing speakers, I have a group of people who is interested from GG crew, who is interested in contacting the speakers, finding the speakers, and they help me. On sprint plannings, we say that, okay, we plan to do this scope of work during next sprint, and then together with a smaller team from GG crew, we distribute the tasks inside that. That's what I mentioned. And other flow of the information is one person, come on people, stop it.
Just press mute button on the laptop and...
Actually true.
No distractions.
You're killing all the fun.
Who suggested this?
One person cannot handle everything, and one person cannot generate all ideas. That's why we have direct flow of the ideas from the crew to the core team. If someone from other GG chapter proposes, let's make this idea, there is high chance that we are going to do this idea. So this is bidirectional flow, and it's not limiting in any case. That's what I mentioned about influence on the organization. All GG crew members can participate in different sub-teams, because they're not fully involved, and maybe they have some more spare time, or they're interested in more areas than speaking, or in working with sponsors. Crew can help with other parts of the conference organization. There is no, at least we don't have a strict schedule for calls, synchronization calls between crew team, but we are doing them like when we collect a bunch of updates or when some big updates are coming. And we have a separate Slack channel for our crew team. Now let's talk about volunteers. Volunteers are the people who are going to help you directly on the event. And this can be core team members, it can be crew members, and there could be some external people, like your best friends, who really want to help you with the conference, but only during the day of the conference. In general, we open a public registration form because people start reaching out us about can we become a volunteer 2-3 months ahead of the DevFest. And we create a public registration form around a month before the event. Then we ask people, do they know English? Because English is mandatory for all volunteers in our case. We ask about their previous experiences with volunteering and stuff like that. And then we do a selection process. Like this year we had, I guess, like 30 submissions for volunteers, and we had to select 7 volunteers, something like very few. And we motivate all volunteers who go from external with free time, because they are always interested in probably seeing some nice lectures or something like that. And we motivate that just tell us what you want to visit, and we'll arrange your schedule in a way you will be able to do that. And there is no such thing as too few volunteers. It's always better to have volunteers slacking around and just chilling, talking with other people than don't have enough people. So think about it. How do you send things done? First, we create a schedule and responsibilities document for all 3 days of the 2 days of the conference and the day before the conference for all volunteers. There is one core team member who is fully responsible for managing all volunteers and who knows always what they should do, what should they do, when should they do, and when they can rest. In our case, I have to say thank you to Diana, because she did a great job with managing volunteers this year. If you want to learn something about management, just talk to Diana, she's amazing with that. And we have a mandatory training for all volunteers 1 day before the conference. The reason why, because all your volunteers should be easy to find. And if they're easy to find, in our case, we prepared the special t-shirts for all volunteers. Are there anyone in t-shirt from volunteers this year? Okay, there is example of our volunteers t-shirt on the back. Those people should know where is the restroom, when will be the lunch, where will be the shuttles for the party, when will be the party. They should know literally every aspect of what is going to happen during the presentations and those 2 days. Because people will ask them. So we do a special training and acknowledge them about all those aspects. And if you want to check our schedule, you can also check the link below. Okay. That was it about team. If there are any questions, please keep them till the end of the session, because I think I'll run out of the time before we'll finish. Talking about budget. Budget is a complex task. You heard the presentation of Peter. It involves a lot of responsibility and a lot of new skills, because we are GDG organizers, we are developers, we are not salespersons in general. And budget and handling the budget, fundraising is something that pushes us out of the comfort zone. And in general, there is no such thing as raising when you need money, because in general, when you need money, it's already too late to raise them. In our case, we are reaching the sponsors from last week. If they are willing to support DevFest next year. It doesn't mean that we are going to sign agreements right away, but that means that we are warming them up, so we don't do cold mail. Okay, let's talk about expenses. It's real data from our budget of this year, and if you'll see, the biggest part is always catering. It's different for each country, but in case of Ukraine, the catering takes the most part. Next is the venue, because in our case, we had to build a lot of infrastructure, then logistics, speakers, and stuff like that. The point is that you always need to keep track on your budget. That's a graph of how our budget looked like during the year. Orange line is the fulfillment of our budget. Our blue lines are incomes into our budget, like income from getting a new sponsor or stuff like that. And red is our expenses. And it's very good if at the end of the conference organization, you will get orange line above 0. That means that you are at least that you are profitable, and you as an organizer are not going to get into minus. But the situation is not always like that. For instance, imagine if one of those big incomes will happen at the end. That means that at some point, you'll get this. Your budget will go to the minus. And that also means that you have to get money from somewhere, because you need to pay for this, pay for this, pay for this. In general, and that's what happened in 2014 in our case, I invested my personal money into DevFest just to fulfill this gap. And we were lucky, because at the end we found sponsors and we got to the plus. But what if this didn't happen? And all invested your money, you'll just lose them. And you'll get into the minus. So definition of GDG is like, we are not non-profit organization that creates great events. We all agree that we want to create the great events, right?
Yeah.
But we also don't want to lose money. And that means that we need to organize events in a way to minimize all the risks related to money, as we are non-profit organizations. So now let's talk about how you as a GDG organizer can minimize the risk of fundraising and your budget gaps. First strategy that we are using widely from the day one, we are creating a detailed spec for our budget, way ahead of the conference. What we include there is the most pessimistic income we can get for the conference, the most pessimistic amount of sponsors we can get, the most pessimistic amount of ticket sales we are going to arrange, and stuff like that. Also, we add to this budget planning we take our expenses, we predict our expenses in the worst case scenario. In this way, we will know for sure that if we'll raise more money or we will save on some budget expenses, we'll get into this safe zone. And always we allocate some security pillow, because you cannot predict everything you'll need half a year before the event. So you need to put this security pillow into your budget planning. Now, when you have a budget, and you at least know you set some expectations for how much you're going to spend for this event and how much what income will be, you can focus on the next part. And in our case, it was paid entrance. The reason why we make entrance paid is this. Catering is the biggest part, the biggest spending of our budget. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to minimize risk of this gap. When you do a free event, there is always a high risk that a lot of people won't attend. And when you invest, you always need to order catering upfront. It means all money that you invested in this catering will be just wasted. When you organize a paid event, even if it's like a small fee, like 10 euros, 5 euros, people are much more committed. And from our experience, if for free events we get attendance around 60%, for paid event, even if it's like minimum entrance fee, it's gonna be like 95% or higher. And now let's talk how do we create the ticket price. If we know that catering per person is going to cost, for instance, $30 for 2 days for party and everything included, and we know that we are going to have 700 of entities on our event, we know that our budget is going to be around like roughly 21,000. It's all imaginary numbers. Now we know that out of those 700 attendees that we are going to eat on the DevFest, there will be, we will sell 150 early bird tickets, lazy bird tickets, student tickets, and those will form our paying tickets customers, paying tickets people. The rest will be tickets that we give away to organizers, or other chapters, to sponsors who also want to do your event and stuff like that. We just divide our catering budget by amount of paying attendees, and we get average price for the tickets. Now, the only thing you need to do is to balance out the prices for all tickets you sell to, in average, have this average ticket price that we established on this step. And the last optimization you can do for your budget is to decrease expenses. First, and probably the most best working for us, is barter. It's when you establish partnerships, but you don't get direct money, but instead you get something instead of money. For instance, in our case, we decided to build a superior quality Wi-Fi network on our DevFest. For those who tried to build Wi-Fi network from scratch for 700 people, can imagine that it's not an easy task, and you won't be able to do that with your Apple router from home. We tried that in 2014, it didn't work out, trust us. No. So we established a partnership with a company called Ruckus, who provided us insane amount of professional, high load grade Wi-Fi routers, and they handled all the network setup, all management of Wi-Fi network at the events. And you can ask our speakers, our network this year was working.
Yeah. I was hearing the presentation from the Google Drive and online, and it worked. I was surprised as well.
Next thing, you can handle a lot of stuff on your own. Instead of ordering some fancy stands, you can ask your friends. You can everything produce on your own and decrease the expenses just by doing stuff not in an expensive and easy way, but in cheap and creative. because everyone can organize amazing conference with 10,000 budget. Try to organize the same amazing event with 1,000 budget. And that's what do it yourself is about. And always you can negotiate the prices. There is no such thing as fixed price for anything you order. Like food can be negotiated, partnerships can be negotiated, price for Wi-Fi, for stage, for lights, for sound, everything can be negotiated. And for our team, this book was just a Bible. If you read this book, you'll do very good in negotiations of any kind for a DevFest. Other best practices we can say about a budget. Sign contracts with anyone. Yes. And the reason for this, it makes clear what to expect from your partner or your subcontractor, and it's subcontractor or partner know what to expect from you. And if anything will go wrong, like I was ready to kill our sound producers at the beginning of the event because they were late for half an hour. And stage was not ready like 20 minutes before the opening. If we put this into a contract, probably they won't be late. Because they will be committed and there should be probably some fines also specified for anything that goes not according to the contract. So sign contracts with everyone. Always do 70-30 payments to your subcontractors. Again, if something will go wrong, you can negotiate on this 30% that you still have to pay after the work was actually done. As I mentioned, there is no fixed prices for anything. And track all expenses. Like all those graphs that I generated, that I showed you before, are generated from our transactions document that contains each and every income or spending that we did for a DevFest with when did it happen, why did it happen, who handled the transaction from each account, which amount, some special notes, receipts. We put as much information as possible into this tracking document. It will help first fully understand where you are now. It will help you to analyze your expenses at the end of the DevFest and know what part to optimize. And if at the end of the event you figure out that some money is missing, you can actually go through expenses, so transactions document, and figure out what went wrong. Now, give me a second to have a sip. And we are going to continue with the content. Now, content. Content is probably the most important part of the conference for attendees, not for organizers. Because people come to the conference to see the speakers, to talk with the speakers, so you should take a special care who do you invite to the event and how do you get them to your event. And you need to understand clearly what content works the best. Is it sessions, workshops, hackathons? What works for your community? Or what are the priorities? If you want to combine those parts, how many sessions do you need to give? Or how many workshops? Or what should be the topics? We all, like our team, for first 2 years were guessing, or more or less guessing, and just selecting the most trending parts from Google I/O of what was announced on Google I/O. We will try to keep aligned with that and present more or less the same topics on our DevFest. But we found that some sessions were overcrowded, some sessions didn't have enough people, and we decided to change approach. How do we select the topics and the content for our DevFest? We went for data-driven decisions. We collect all the information we need upfront. We send a survey, and we directly ask our attendees what do they want to see half a year before. We sent also not only half a year before the event, we also collected the data what people were the most interested in during this event in our feedback form after 2016 to get the data and to understand what is interesting for our community. That's an example of what we got from a survey we sent half a year ago to our attendees. Most of our people were interested on learning something new, on something that they are not working with probably. Or they want to improve their existing skills. They want to have a lot of networking. This graph will create us a guideline, how many sessions should we have, how many workshops, or how many time and energy we should invest in parties, or how long should we make a breaks where people can actually do networking. And also, each of these parts that I showed in the graph, it contains, you can learn some new skills in workshops and demos. You can improve your skills again with the sessions and workshops on hands-ons. You can do workshops, or in demos area we had a stand where you could actually build your own cardboard. And networking. Networking is always the most essential part of the conference. Not only for business people, but also for developers. And there is one side note, why did we stop to do hackathons? In 2014, our team organized 2 days event. First day was a hackathon, second day was a conference. And it didn't work out. 2 reasons for that. First, 2 hours is not enough for a hackathon. You can't do longer event, you can't do overnight event, because next day is the conference, and people will be simply tired. So the only way to do that is 12 hours, it's not enough for a proper hackathon. Next, most likely you won't be able to do the same, to use the same venue for hackathon and the conference. That means you need to arrange food, Wi-Fi, and everything you need to arrange for the event in 2 separate locations, which creates extra pressure for you from logistics part. And it's a hard decision to attendee. Like if you decide to run hackathon in parallel together with sessions, it's always a hard decision for attendee. Either should I go to a hackathon, but there is such an interesting session, but I need only 1 session, so should I go to a hackathon or go to the sessions? So don't play with nerves of your attendees. Do a hackathon as a separate event, and that experience that we got from running hackathon together with the conference. Talking about workshops. Use Google provided code labs, they're amazing. There are now over, I guess, 50, maybe even more code labs. Any complexity, any time frame. Now use them for during workshops, people enjoy them because they are always high quality, and it simplifies life for your speakers. When you organize a workshop, you think about Wi-Fi, and think about Wi-Fi twice, 3 times, or even more, because people never read what you say them. Even if you say them that they need to preload node packages, they need to preload Photoshop, whatever, to their laptops to run successfully workshop, you will never get to a workshop where 100% people will do that. And they'll start loading these huge binary packages through your Wi-Fi network. So make sure you have good internet solution for that. And it's advice more for speakers. Make sure if you need some environment set up, make sure you have, if it's like nodes and some web environment, maybe you can provide Docker container. Basically think how you can help those people who will forget to set up environment quickly on the conference. And from our experience, good workshop cannot handle more than 30 people, because when it's more than 30 people, it becomes a session. And so you can't get that direct interaction with attendee with a workshop guide. Next, demo area. This year we are highly inspired by Google I/O. We brought tons of Android experiments, like the one that you see behind my back. It's a virtual reality guitar brought from, it was demoed on Google I/O, and all sources, everything is published on an Android experiment site. So when you're going to run your DevFest, think about going to Android Experience website, check what demos you can implement, and do them, because people like them a lot. The same goes for Chrome experiments. We had Werebeard, where you can control a game like Angry Bird, like Flappy Bird, with your Android Wear device. Cloud demos. Who knows this demo behind? Wow, okay, quite a lot of people. So the demo behind is based on Google Cloud Vision. Basically, you need just set up a laptop, take a camera takes the photos of your attendees, and you can produce the nicely animated output to a screen you're going to attach nearby with emotion analysis, draw nice cycles with smooth colors around the image and post it to Twitter. Why this demo is super amazing? First, it showcases how powerful is Google Cloud, and when I saw it on Google I/O, I was fascinated with it. Second, it creates a great viral presence in the media because it posts to Twitter and people can share it, they can tag each other, and people like it. People like to take photos of themselves. And provide hands-on in your workshops. Like, we have GDG classes that are amazing in building workshops, amazing in organizing. All the demos with augmented reality were organized by them. People like that stuff. Now networking. When you come to networking, first thing you can do is longer breaks. But again, you need to make longer breaks only if your audience requires that. And second part is the party. But there is one small problem with the parties. There are in general two types of attendees. First are networkers. The people who come to a party to talk with other people, to make new connections, like learn something new from speakers, stuff like that. Basically, they need some background music and to be able to reach other people. But there is other kind of people, party animals, who come to events to drink with friends, party, dance, and have just a lot of fun. And in general, it's very hard to combine both of them in one place. You either need to do some separate but still connected environments, like separate rooms, where in one the music will play like super loud, you will have bars there and everything. And second part, which is quiet, is relaxed atmosphere where people can talk. In our case, we did a silent party, which is like people just like it. You saw the video. Okay, let's move on. Quickly talk about speakers. I guess we have 10 minutes left, so I'll rush less, 5. We'll go through this quickly. Speakers are the persons who can make your average event to an amazing one. If you don't have proper food, you don't have enough food, your Wi-Fi is not working. But if you have amazing speakers, you are all good. You'll of course get a bad feedback about that other stuff, but if you get bad speakers, forget about it. Your reputation will be destroyed. Now, what we do to get the best speakers possible? If our event is in September, we start our call for papers in March together as we start the organization itself. For a couple of months till July or 2-3 months before the event, we highly promote our call for papers. Then we take 2 weeks break to select the best submissions, and then we help speakers. Help speakers to deliver the best presentation possible. And when you're looking for speakers, in general, there are, again, 2 types of speakers you have to look for. First, those are experts. Experts who know their topic. They can deliver amazing presentations, but it's not always that people know them. They can work for a small startup that people are not aware, or whatever. If you want to push sales to your conference, you need brand speakers. People from big, like people who has high titles, like CTO of some company or guy from Google. Basically, you need people, speakers who are going to sell to your partners, sponsors, and attendees. And it's not always the same people, unfortunately. If you find amazing speakers and they are brand speakers, you found unicorns, keep inviting them to your DevFest or your conference over and over. Where can we get speakers? First, and the best approach is to grow them from your community. We always invite new and engaged attendees of our events to speak at our smaller events to gain more experience in speaking. And after 2, 3, 4, 5 presentations, they will be confident enough and will be ready to present on the conference like DevFest. Next, you can look for other conferences. Look around. What are the best conferences around? Go through their speakers list and select what speakers you want to get from there. Go through GDG directory. Google created us a huge favor by listing all the best speakers they have in one directory with all their direct contacts. And one more thing is evangelists from other companies. You can reach JetBrains to request a speaker about Kotlin or about IntelliJ IDEA. You can reach Genymotion to request a speaker about their Android emulator. You can reach other big companies, and they'll be more than happy to send their speakers and pay for you. So it's one more thing where you can save your budget. And one more thing, if you are speaking a lot like I do on the conferences, don't forget to mention your conference somewhere at the end. Just like this. We invite you, inviting everyone on October 13, 14 in Lviv for DevFest 2017. And this stage can be yours. Okay, let's go to the next part, and how do we select speakers? Check all the data from the submission. You always need to select the content that is experience-based, not documentation-based. What we got from feedback 2 years ago, what we got last year, what we even got this year, so we tried not to get this, that why do you brought the speaker, because I could read the same in the developersandroid.com. So try to find people who will tell the story, how did they manage theirs, how did they survive the huge load from their customers, or some real life stories, because people engage with them much better, and that's what it's not possible to find in the internet. Check the best performing speakers from the last year. To get this data, we collect 2 types of feedback. First is feedback on the exit of the session. We have a volunteer standing with tablets where you have 3 buttons, and people can say if they liked the session, or didn't like, or were neutral. So we analyze this data. Also, we send out a feedback form where people can fill in the data about all sessions they attended. And this gives us a good insight of which speakers did a great job, and we are ready to invite them for next year, and which speakers people liked or not. It's maybe not the case for all countries, but at least in Ukraine, we need to check English of the speakers. We try to do our DevFest fully in English. This year we had only 1 session in Ukrainian, and it's only because the speaker is super, I'm just a huge fan of that guy, but he's not very good in English. So if you want to check the speaker who is not native speaker, check his English. And always ask to speakers in the submission form to provide a recording of their session. If they can't provide that, ask them for a sample or for something, because you need to see how person is performing on the stage. Just by saying that I attended 5 great conferences doesn't mean that he attended, like he's doing great on the stage, because he can perform bad on the stage on all 5 conferences. So if it's possible, get the video recording. It is the best proof of the speaker is good. And again, if you want to save on a budget a bit, and you are running sessions and workshops, select multifunctional speakers, those who can run session on one day and workshop on another. And unfortunately, I have to say that GDE status is not a guarantee of great speaker. You need to apply all those criteria that I mentioned in the previous slide, even to GDEs. Let's move on. Help speakers. So when you promoted your call for papers, you selected the best speakers. It's time to help speakers to do the best on the conference. Because from now on, you're the best friends. You invested into them. You spent tons of time to find them, and you expect from them high output, like high quality presentation. And here is the way how you can help them. Provide all the information about audience you have. What their audience is interested in. Are they mostly developers, designers, whatever. Provide as much information as possible so speaker can adjust his talk, like by the complexity level, by how many examples or how many codes to include, stuff like that. Provide all information about speaker, about equipment is going to be available on the stage. What will be the ratio of the screen? Like, speaker is going to have access to the laptop? Is he will be able to connect audio and stuff like that? Provide slide templates. The reason why we provide slide templates, I'm out of the time now. It can simplify life for a speaker. We want to let speaker focus on his content, not on the design of the slides. And we provide them templates so that they can just put their knowledge into slides, don't worrying about the design. Provide always deadlines for speakers. I was terrible with this. I used to do my presentation at the last night before the conference. And in general, it doesn't provide very good quality of the slides. It doesn't provide very good preparation. So put hard deadlines for all speakers when the draft presentation should be sent to you, when the final presentation should be sent to you, and when you have draft or final presentation, you'll be able to provide feedback to the speaker. Because what we faced in 2014, Google provided amazing G content about Android Wear. And we had 3 presentations about Android Wear who use the same base presentation about introduction to Android Wear. And to avoid situations like that, reviews of the presentations before actually presenting them will help you a lot. Provide feedback on each submission. Before that, speak will actually happen, and we provide feedback to our speakers always after events. We send out those numbers that we collected from our attendees. And let them practice on the stage. We always let our speakers, if they want, to come one day before. So far, no one's committed to that, but we always provide a chance to experience the stage day before the conference. And as part of Hoverboard, we distribute also a speaker guidelines page. It's hoverboard/hub, where we provide templates. What do we provide to our, just go to Hoverboard page, you don't have to take photos. It's not there? Okay, go to the Fast Ukraine website, it is there. And you will see what we provide to our speakers, what information to help them. And if you do everything well, you'll get feedback like this. Is Michal still? Yes, he's still here. He wrote this in 2015 when he saw our slide template. And you can't even imagine how excited our team was when we saw this post. One more thing, always secure a backup speaker. Shit happens, and some of your speakers can drop one day before the event, 2 hours before the event. Like, everything happens. Getting a backup speaker will make sure that you won't get a gap in your conference, and it won't create too much pressure on your budget. Trust us. To sum up, about the team, you have to create a live structure, because there are several types of people. Core team should be focused on event vision and responsibility. Crew should help with everything else and screen the volunteers before letting them to help on the event. Work with Scrum, use proper tooling for a budget. I forgot all the slides.
Okay, jump it.
Everything is negotiable about budget. Remember that. For content, use data-backed decisions before you select the speaker, you select the content, and collect this data a year before, sometime before, but before the event. Pay a lot of attention when you select the speakers, because if you have a lot of submissions, you can really create an impact in those 2 weeks when you select the presentation. So invest the time, invest your time, do your research, and select the best speakers possible. And help the speakers. Help the speakers, because if you help the speakers, it will improve the quality of the presentations, it will improve the quality of the event, and the people will be happy. And always have a backup. Life is life, and you never know what to present. With all this, we can say for sure that when developers come together, amazing things can happen. And knowing all this, organize a great event and make your DevFest on a scale. That's it.